Okay, we are recording and streaming now.
Thank you. Mr. Court Reporter, if we can go on the record now, please. Good morning. Welcome back. Thank you. Good morning. Welcome back to a hearing before the Public Service Commission of Maryland in case number 9613, and captioned in the matter of the complaint of the staff of the Public Service Commission of Maryland versus Smart Energy Holdings, LLC, DBA Smart Energy. This is day 2 of our evidentiary hearing. We're going to begin with a preliminary matter. As we discussed yesterday, instead of calling it the document that counsel sent around, for identification purposes, the document that was attached to an email from Laura Music sent yesterday at approximately 2:27 p.m.
Could you repeat that? You cut out a lot, Your Honor.
Yes, you can hear me?
Can you? I know you were cutting out. Could you please repeat what you just said?
Okay, sure. So there was an email sent around yesterday at about 2:27 p.m. from Laura Music to all the parties with a document attached. For purposes of identification, that document will be marked as Bench Exhibit 1. So we all can refer to it that way instead of the document sent around yesterday. I did receive Mr. Green's email from late last night. So I believe Mr. Kern is now excused as a witness.
Yes, that's correct.
Mr. Wilson, I talk to you, please.
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you had a chance now to review the document that was sent around? I'm sorry, Bench Exhibit 1. It's been marked for identification.
I have, Your Honor, and I've communicated with Mr. Green concerning it, and it's my understanding he's withdrawing that document from consideration and that it's no longer an issue.
I understand that. I'm wondering if staff has reviewed it and has any position on whether or not it should come into evidence. Do you have any objection if it were to come into evidence?
I do have a number of objections if it were to come into evidence, Your Honor.
And those would be?
Well, for the first thing, it was filed late for an enduring trial. But the primary objection is, it wasn't produced earlier. It apparently is in response to Mr. Mosier's testimony, but there was no rebuttal testimony. They've certainly had a long time in which they could have raised this issue, but the primary reason is that it's completely irrelevant. It's a set of their own interrogatory answers, which those in themselves typically parties are not allowed to provide their own answers. But in this case, they're completely irrelevant. The interrogatory that they were responding to asked for their marketing materials from other states. And that's what is there. They're marketing materials from some other state. It refers to the sweepstakes. And as we heard from Mr. Kern yesterday, there were never sweepstakes promotions in Maryland. And then last night I circulated the commission order granting the license. In that order, part of that order was the commission ordered that the company file Maryland-specific marketing materials prior to beginning operation in Maryland. I have seen no record and have been able to find no record. Those were to be provided to OPC and to staff, and we have no record that Maryland-specific marketing materials were ever provided to Maryland. I think the implication that was sought when this document was apparently hastily provided was that these were Maryland provided marketing materials, and that the Maryland Commission, our analyst, had somehow approved them for use in Maryland. That was never the case. It's obvious from the order of the commission that Maryland-specific materials be produced was that we were still seeking Maryland-specific marketing materials, which may or may not have included the outline. It wasn't even a word for word script. It wasn't a script. In fact, Ms. Kern said we don't do scripts in that response. So what we received was something that was being used in another state. And the fact that another state approved it did not mean it would be approved by Maryland, and it was never approved in Maryland.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wilson. You've informed me as to why this document is not relevant in this proceeding. We can now move on, and Smart Energy can call its next.
Your Honor, OPC has some housekeeping issues with exhibits.
Okay.
Yesterday, we circulated a pre-marked exhibit OPC 4, which was Smart Energy's response to staff's data request 1-4, and it included the 2 scripts that were discussed yesterday in testimony. But we had also, on Tuesday evening, we had circulated 4 exhibits that were pre-marked 4, 5, 6, and 7. Yesterday, we discussed exhibit 4, which is Comar 20610401, and exhibit 7, which is Comar 20.53.07.08. So to avoid confusion, I would like to renumber what I sent last night as exhibit OPC 8.
Is this the email from 6:28 p.m. Wednesday, October 28th?
Yes. It was erroneously labeled 4 when it should have been 8, Your Honor.
Okay, that.
Your Honor, this is the court reporter again.
Yes.
When people speak, if they would please give their name for the record, because it's awfully hard when you're looking at the screen to see who's actually talking. So please give your name before you speak, and then I'll have it for the record.
The first time, Mr. Court Reporter, just the first time they speak?
No, sir. No, ma'am. Each time they speak, I need to have their last name is fine. It doesn't matter.
Mr. Court Reporter, I'm sorry. I'm not going to ask them to say their name each time they speak, because I think that's not what they're used to doing. We didn't do that yesterday, and I'm not sure they're going to be able to remember to do that. They can say it the first time they speak, and we'll go from there.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Okay, so the email that I received on October 28, 2020 at 6:28 p.m. with one document attached will now be pre-marked for identification as OPC Exhibit 8.
Correct, Your Honor.
are you moving it into
And
evidence?
we would also like to move it into evidence as its contents were discussed in testimony yesterday to complete the record.
Any objection?
Peter Wilson, no objection.
No objection.
That was Mr. Green.
Yes, I'm sorry. Brian Green, no objection.
Okay, OPC Exhibit 8 will be entered into the record. Any other housekeeping
Your Honor.
matters, Mr. Sheehan?
I want to also to move it into evidence.
Yes, it's moved into
We've
evidence.
done that. Okay, thank you.
Any other housekeeping matters?
No. No, Your Honor.
Okay, then I believe we are back to Smart Energy with Smart Energy's next witness.
Yes, Your Honor. We called Lloyd Spencer. And before he's sworn in, just to follow up my email that you alluded to from last night, I'd like to ask that Mr. Spencer, once we admit his testimony, briefly ask him if he can please correct the record from an answer that Mr. Kern gave yesterday. You may recall that he was asked a series of questions by Mr. Sheehan about whether the calls, including the ones we've listened to and all the calls during the complaint period, I think were recorded and maintained by an independent third-party vendor. And his answer was that they do it in-house. But Mr. Spencer, who is the company's COO, one of his job responsibilities is to manage the company's information technology, can testify accurately that the company does outsource those functions and has since early on in the days of the company's operations, that they use a company called Five9 to record the call.
Mr. Green, at this point you're testifying. I'll allow you to ask your witness the questions and have him testify. As to the characterization you're giving it of correcting the record, I'm not going to give it that characterization. Mr. Kern's testimony stands, and then Mr. Spencer's testimony will be his testimony. And you may proceed.
Your Honor, OPC would like to...
This is James Greger with Commission staff. I don't know if this would be the appropriate place to lodge an objection, but staff objects insofar as this is completely new testimony. And not only is it completely new testimony, but it's testimony that directly contradicts the company's previous testimony. So I don't know if now would be the appropriate place to lodge that objection, but insofar as it is, staff does object to that.
Okay, you're speaking
OPC, I'm sorry.
Let me talk to Mr. Greger first. I just want to clarify, you're talking about this specific issue, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
The use of a TPV.
Okay. And Mr. Sheehan?
We have the same objection, and we would like to point out that because of the company's interpretation of the Maryland Telephone Solicitations Act, this provision is crucial to what they're doing, and we don't understand why 18 months after this it was filed, they suddenly realized that they're recording phone calls with an outside third party.
Well, I think that can be dealt with on cross-examination, Mr. Sheehan. Proceed, Mr. Green. Call your witness.
Okay, we need to swear him in, I think, right?
Mr. Spencer, can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm under penalties of perjury the testimony you're about to give in this case is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
You're a witness, Mr. Green.
Mr. Spencer, can you state your full name and business address for the record, please?
Lloyd Spencer, 400 Madison Avenue, 9th floor, New York, New York.
And on March 13th, 2020, did you cause to be filed reply testimony consisting of 7 pages and 3 exhibits?
Yes.
And if I were to ask you the same questions today under oath, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
And you have no corrections to the document?
No.
Okay. At this point, Your Honor, I'd ask that the document be marked as Smart Energy Exhibit number 4.
So marked.
And assuming no objection, I'd ask that it be admitted into evidence as Exhibit 4.
Any objections to Mr. Spencer's written testimony coming into the record?
No objections, Your Honor.
Okay, Smart Energy Exhibit 4 is entered into the record. Mr.
Okay.
Green, you sounded a little uncertain. Do you need me to go back and double check your exhibit numbers, or are you confident we're on 4?
Every once in a while I miss one, so I'm never confident, but I think we're on 4. I think we had some discovery as number 1, Mr. Kern's reply, and then Mr. Kern's rebuttal, and that brings us to number 4.
Yes, I just went back to my notes, and that's what I have as well. Okay, so that is entered into record as Smart Energy Exhibit 4.
Okay. Mr. Spencer, were you listening on the WebEx telecast yesterday afternoon as Mr. Kern testified?
Yes.
And do you recall him being asked questions about how the company records and maintains those recordings with respect to incoming and with respect to phone calls with customers?
Yes.
And in your job responsibilities, do you manage and work with the information technology on a daily basis with the company?
Yes.
In fact, you're in charge of it.
Mr. Green, this
Yes.
is direct testimony. The other parties aren't objecting, but this is direct testimony. Can we keep
Okay, I
it?
was just laying the foundation that he would know the answer to the question. But
I know, but you're
okay,
leading
so
him quite a bit.
I'll get to it. Do you happen to know whether the company records the phone calls it has with customers?
The company uses a third-party vendor called Five9 for all of our phone system. And under our agreement with Five9, they record all of those calls for us and store them.
And so Five9 is storing them?
Correct.
And is the callers, the actual agents that are talking to the customers, are they with Five9 or are they with the company?
The agents work for Smart Energy. The phone system they're using is a cloud-based system called Five9, which it's internet telephony, similar to this conversation we're having.
Okay, and then who maintains the recordings?
So Five9 maintains them for a period of time. We have an agreement with Amazon Web Services. We have what's called an FTP site with Amazon. And so after a period of time, the calls are archived by Amazon on an Amazon Web Services server.
Okay, so you have an agreement with Five9 to record and maintain calls for a period of time. And then you said the calls, somehow Five9 copies or transmits those calls over to AWS,
Correct.
where they're stored indefinitely.
Yes.
How do, if Smart Energy is going to listen to a call for quality assurance or other reasons, how do they access it? Do they just?
So we can log into the Five9 system over the internet, and we can download a recording if we want to listen to it, or if it's an older recording that's in the Amazon Web Services server, we can log into that server and download it, or find the recording and download it from there.
When did that arrangement with Five9 begin?
At the company's inception in 2013, we first started taking calls.
So at all times from during the Maryland operations, has the company used Five9 and then AWS?
Yes.
Okay. Your Honor, I believe that concludes my questions on that. So the witness would be available for cross.
Mr. Greger, are you handling this witness?
I am, Your Honor. Just a short cross. Good morning, Mr. Spencer. I'm James Greger with Commission staff. How are you doing today?
Good morning. I'm well, thank you.
Excellent. Mr. Spencer, as Chief Operating Officer of Smart Energy, one of your responsibilities is procurement of wholesale energy, correct?
Yes.
As well as renewable energy credits, or RECs?
Correct, yes.
You're also responsible for forecasting energy and supply costs, are you not?
I am. We use a third-party vendor to come up with the forecast, but it's my responsibility to make sure it's accurate.
Understood. Thank you. Moving on to your testimony that you filed in this case, And you submitted reply testimony on March 13th of this year, correct?
Yes.
And your reply testimony was primarily in response to OPC witness Muncie?
Yes.
In your reply testimony, you respond to OPC witness Muncie's discussion on Smart Energy's fixed price protection, yes?
Yes.
And now referring to your testimony, do you have that in front of you? Or access to it?
Yes, I do. Is there a page number?
Yes. So referring to your testimony on page 3, around line 19, you state that OPC is not comparing apples to apples when asked the question on Smart Energy's pricing typically being a little bit higher than the typical SOS rates. Isn't that correct?
Yes. Yeah, that's correct.
All
Sorry,
right,
I'm
and just to
finding the page.
clarify, in general, or at least the trend is Smart Energy's monthly rates tend to be a little bit higher than the comparable SOS rate provided by the utility. Isn't that right?
It depends on the year. 2018 was a particularly difficult year in the wholesale markets. So during the complaint period, that is true. 2019 and before 2018, that was not the case.
Understood. And when you state that the comparison is not apples to apples, you mean the product offered by Smart Energy is not the same as typical SOS offered by the utilities, correct?
Yes.
So it's not the same product.
Correct.
And going on into your testimony, I believe you refer to value-added components. That's the primary difference between your product and the SOS product.
That's the terminology I believe I use. Yes.
Yes, and this includes the 100% REX, the fixed price protection, the
Yes.
eligibility for a 1 month free, and the tree being planted in the honor of the customer for every customer that you sign on. These are the value-added components that you discussed in your testimony, correct?
That sounds right. Yes.
Okay. So just for clarification purposes, so you're saying that it's not a valid comparison and that if Smart Energy's prices were higher in general than the SOS rate, it's because of those value-added components. And those value-added components include the eligibility for the 1 free month, the tree being planted in the honor of the customer, those factors, correct?
I wouldn't characterize it that way, no.
How would you characterize it?
I'd say the reason it's higher is because of those factors in addition to whatever the prevailing wholesale price is at which we're able to source and deliver energy. We don't get to buy the SOS rate. You know, we don't get to buy at the wholesale rate like the SOS price. Therefore, the difference in rates is attributable to things other than those attributes.
Are you saying that those attributes don't contribute to the price, however?
No, I'm saying they do contribute to the price, but they don't account exclusively for the difference between our rate and the standard office service rate.
Understood. Thank you. Moving on to another track. So is your company continuing to use that third-party vendor 5.9 for your cloud computing or storage services?
Yes.
And just to clarify your testimony, you were using that during the complaint period?
Yes.
Understood. Your Honor, I believe that wraps up my questions. I have no more questions for this witness. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Sheehan?
Your Honor. Good morning, Mr. Spencer. I'm Philip Sheehan. I work with the Office of People's Counsel. I would first like to ask you some questions about the information that you provided for the first time this morning. You mentioned that you use the 5.9 phone system.
Yes.
Who do you have a contract with? Is there a contract?
Yes. It's with a company called 5.9. They're one of several vendors in the space.
Okay. And then you mentioned that at some point, you said after a period of time, or they maintain it for a period of time, it goes to another entity or another
Yes.
company?
So we have a contract with Amazon Web Services, which is a cloud server, cloud computing vendor that we pay for maintaining servers for us. One of those servers is a file server, basically, a FTP server. And so so after at a point in time, the 5.9 recordings are delivered by 5.9 to the archive server at Amazon Web Services.
Thank you. You said that it was a cloud-based system. Do you or other employees of Smart Energy have access to those recordings at all the time? Or do you have to contact the company to request it?
No, we have to log into the 5.9 website and search for the, usually that we use call metadata to search for the call, the time, the agent, or some other attribute to find the correct call. And then on the Amazon Web Service server, similarly, we log in there and search for the call.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Kern testified yesterday that the entire call was not sent to CAD. Do these companies edit those recordings and provide you with the verification section, which is then sent to CAD?
No.
Who does the editing?
It's done by Smart Energy. It's not someone on my team, so I don't really, I can't give you a lot of information about it, but it's done by Smart Energy.
It's done in-house.
Done in-house, yes.
Okay. Okay. Turning to your testimony,
This is the reply testimony.
yeah, you have. I guess you've only provided reply testimony. Okay. Before we move on to that, I wanted to ask you, with this cloud-based system, are you able to go into that system and delete an audio file?
We couldn't delete it off 5.9. For us to delete it off the AWS archive server.
Okay.
Not our practice to do that.
I'm only concerned about whether you have the ability to do that.
I understand.
Okay, so turning to your direct testimony, the bottom of page 2, starting with line 22, carrying over to the entire carryover paragraph, which ends on line 6 of page 3.
Yes.
You seem to say that the consumer has access to the rates, the utilities rates, and that they should know what the rates are, and thus, I guess, perhaps ignore any statements made by the sales agents to the contrary.
I'm not sure I implied that they should ignore any statements made by sales agents, but Mr. Muncie's testimony contains an example of a BGE bill, which shows an example of the price to compare information. I can try to find it if that would be helpful.
We're aware of that.
Okay.
That's fine. Mr. Muncie showed it to me. I had never noticed it. If we could turn to exhibit SMB 5.
Yes.
Your Honor, before we get there, I just want to object to the editorializing at the end of the last question. Mr. Sheehan never saw that box on the bill. So I just would like to have that an objection to that statement.
Stricken.
I would like to have
That's-
it stricken, yes.
Mr.
That's
Sheehan,
fine.
do you withdraw that? Okay.
Yeah, I withdraw it.
Thank you.
Could my representation direct me to which exhibit we're looking for?
I misspoke. It's Exhibit SMB4.
And can you tell me whose direct or reply or deposition that would be?
They're transcripts of the sales, some of the sales calls. It's in Baldwin's direct testimony.
Okay,
Exhibit
great. Baldwin's,
4.
I have Baldwin's direct here. Thank you. I just didn't have the coding. Is there a page number?
Yeah, page 2 of 41.
Page 2 of 41. Yes. Is this the one that begins, have you previously analyzed consumer issues?
I'm sorry, this is Exhibit SMB.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
4 to her direct testimony and their transcripts of telephone calls.
Right, I think it gets confusing because there's page numbers on the top and on the bottom. So maybe you could confirm which page you're looking at.
Oh, actually it's page 2 of 41 at the top and page 2 of 5 at the bottom.
I apologize. I'm going to need some direction from, I have a 1,600 page PDF document here, and I don't have a 2 of 41 in it. Is there someone who can tell me?
Yeah, try page 1331.
Okay.
The PDF I'm looking at is 1,671 pages long. So I'm on page 13.
Is this reply or is this direct or rebuttal?
This is direct.
Okay. I have it, 41, 35 of 41. Okay, sorry. I apologize. The numbers started over again. 10,
okay.
3, 2. Okay, I'm on page 2 of 41. I apologize for the delay.
Okay. This is a transcript of a call we listened to it yesterday, and it was your sales agent was.
Let's be careful about giving names, please.
Yeah, I apologize.
Yeah, initials. I think initials will be fine, Mr. Sheehan.
Okay. Okay, so sales. Could the court reporter delete those names from the record?
I will make a note of that.
Thank you. So the sales agent is initials AP, and on page 2, could you read what AP said starting at line 50 and ending at line 51?
So you know this is only for the upcoming months because the rates tend to go crazy high.
Okay. Whose rates is he referring to?
I don't know. Great question.
Because you don't know the utility service area where this person lives?
I don't know what rates he's referring to. He could be referring to the customer's current supplier. He could be referring to standard offer rates.
Could
we talk about wholesale prices?
Yeah. Could you explain the price protection plan? What are consumers being protected against?
Well,
This current, go ahead.
some suppliers have variable rates that change from month to month. And so we differentiate our products from variable rate products by providing a fixed rate for the first 6 months.
Okay, and how do you establish that the person being spoken to has a third party, is currently enrolled with a third party supplier that's not Smart Energy?
We don't know whether they're with a third party supplier or with the utility.
With if he were referring to the SOS price of Baltimore Gas and Electric, the statement he made there is untrue, correct?
I'm going to object. I think we might be we're asking him about a transcript that it's not even clear if he's ever read before.
But now he's asking him a more general question, I think.
It's been, the transcript
If he
has
can
been in
answer it based
evidence
on
since January 31st.
Mr. Sheehan, I don't interpret your question as being based solely on the transcript. You can ask the question in a general way, and to the extent it goes to the subject of his testimony, which I believe it does, I believe he can answer. Do you understand the question, Mr. Spencer?
I do,
Okay.
Your Honor. So could I reply by referring to my written testimony?
I think that's fair.
So in my testimony, yes, this is page 5, or starting at the bottom of page 4, I give examples of times when BGE's rates increased. I give a couple of examples here, October 2019 and February 2020 for BGE. I don't know if this is a BGE customer. If it was Delmarva, Maryland, their rate increased in June 2020, and so on. I don't need to read these all, obviously.
Mr. Sheehan, do you have another question?
Would you consider any of the changes you mentioned on page 5 of your testimony to be crazy high?
I could look them up in a spreadsheet for you. I don't have the numbers written in this testimony.
Okay, and if the sales agent looking backwards from these dates you give on page 5, for 6 months prior to that, or even earlier, would the sales agent have known what BGE's rates were going to be? Let me rephrase the
Sorry, go ahead.
question. Looking back from the dates that you put in on page 5 of your testimony, looking back in the 6 months preceding that change, would the rates of those utilities be known to Smart Energy?
I certainly am aware of them. I research them. Research all of our utility price to compares, and we actually now use a third party to provide us that information. So Smart Energy would know. Whether the agent would know or not, if that's the question, I don't know.
They're not informed of the rates that they are discussing in these sales calls?
We do inform them of upcoming rate changes. I don't know whether this agent knew of these specific changes.
Okay, thank you. You discuss on page 3, starting at line 17. 17 and 18 are the question, and then your response starts on at line 19 and carries over. The characteristics of the RECs that you purchase, how is that communicated to sales agents? Or how is it incorporated into the terms and conditions or cover letter, welcome letter that goes out?
Okay, so there's a couple of different questions there. I'll try to address them in the order you asked them. The agents are trained, they go through training when we hire them, and we explain about the renewable characteristics of our product in training. Your second question was about the welcome kit, and I believe it states that the energy is green or renewable. I don't remember the exact wording. And the contract specifies the exact nature of the certificates we retire to offset their usage.
And it specifies whether they're tier 1 or tier 2 or other?
It specifies that they're deliverable into the PJM territory.
I mean, they're valid for use in the PJM territory?
Yes.
Or they derived
correct.
from, okay. So you discussed the price protection plan price as having some value added component that's based on the green nature of the energy and the fact that Smart Energy plants a tree on behalf of the enrollee.
I'm sorry, is the question?
Question, that's what you said in your testimony, correct?
Yes, correct.
Oh, okay. In the calls we listened to yesterday, there was no mention of the electricity being purchased being 100% renewable, were there? No references?
Not on those calls, no.
Okay. And was the tree planting discussed with the consumer?
I didn't hear it on those calls, no.
Okay. And if a consumer, I believe yesterday we heard from one of the consumers, if she says it,
Mr. Sheehan. Mr. Court Reporter, can you please make a note to use the initials HC and not have that name spelled out?
I'm going to make a note of that in the beginning so that if it accidentally happens, it will not be put into the record.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Mr. Sheehan.
Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you, Mr. Court Reporter. The consumer with the initials HC expresses in the call that she lives on a fixed income and on a fixed income. Do you think she would want to pay for having a tree planted in her name?
I'm going to object to calls for speculation. I don't know why.
It does to a certain extent, but
answer that.
Well, Mr. Green, it does, except that Mr. Spencer has provided testimony about this value added benefit. I assume he has some opinion as to whether the consumers find it to be of value. So I'm going to allow the question.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? This is about the customer on a fixed income?
The call we listened to yesterday.
Right. And so the question is whether she would have, whether I think she might place a value on renewable energy.
If she had been told that the price included having a tree planted in her name and the purchase of 100% renewable energy and being on a fixed income, wouldn't that information be important for her to determine whether she wanted to enroll or not enroll with Smart Energy?
Maybe. I don't know how important renewable energy was to that customer. If I'd be happy to elaborate further.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
I would be happy to elaborate further if that would be helpful. When I go to buy a car, some people ask whether it has ABS brakes. Some people don't. It just depends whether it's important to them the car they're buying has ABS brakes.
But I understand your testimony to be that there's a value to the 100%. renewable energy and the tree planting. And if you don't want the ABS breaks, you can not take them if you are strapped for money.
Sure.
Thank you. You I would say in many of the CAD complaints, Ms. Kern agreed to re-rate the enrollee. And on page 6 of your testimony, line 16,
Yes.
how do you know when you do a re-rate? I think there was testimony yesterday that there was no knowledge of whether your enrollees came directly from the utility or perhaps from another third-party supplier. How do you determine what the re-rate should be?
We use a standard offer service rate.
Thank you. And that's all I have for this witness. Thank you, Mr. Spencer.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Spencer,
Yes, ma'am.
that's fine. You mentioned that Smart Energy has a contract with 5.9.
Yes.
I'm going to issue a bench data request that Smart Energy produce a copy of that contract.
Okay.
So your counsel will email that to all the parties, and then the record will be held open for the sole purposes of determining whether that'll come into the record. It would seem as that based on your testimony that it might be relevant to this matter. Similarly, your contract with Amazon, or if it's AWS, I'm not sure the proper title, bench data request 2 for your contract with that entity. Again, the record will be held open for the purposes of determining whether that document should come into the record as relevant to this proceeding. You talked about having access to the calls that are recorded. I believe you said that you can access them when they're still in the cloud under the 5.9 contract.
Yes.
And then I know you said you can log into a server. Is that with 5.9?
No. So the server is the AWS server where the calls are archived, and so yes, that's the server I was referring to.
Okay, and so how do you provide, or how do you gain access to the calls while they're still with 5.9?
They have a browser-based system where you log in, and then they have various sort of search parameters that you can use to narrow the set, and then they just show up as hyperlinks, and you click on the hyperlink, and it downloads the recording so that you can listen to it on your computer.
Okay, and you said for a period of time. Can you narrow that down at all? Do you know how long they're with 5.9 before they're transferred to Amazon?
I believe it's 90 days, but I want to check the contract to double check, but I'm pretty sure it's 90 days.
Okay, and if you're logging in, as you said, to access the calls, would it be possible to provide that login information to a regulatory body for them to be able to log in to access your calls?
Yeah, yes, Your Honor. That would be possible.
And would that also be possible once they've been transferred to the Amazon archive system?
Yes. It's just a little more difficult to find them if you're looking for something specific there, but yes.
But if you just wanted to pull some random calls,
yes,
you'd be able to do that?
Yes, Your Honor.
I believe Mr. Sheehan asked you whether calls could be deleted, and you said yes, correct?
Yes, so the AWS server has different kind of logon So different users have different credentials and they have different permissions on that server when they log into the FTP server. Some of those permissions are read-only, but some of them include the ability to delete files. So it would be possible for some users who have that permission to do that. I just don't know off the top of my head which users have the ability to delete records. But we do also keep an indexing database table of all recordings. So we also have that information as well.
And that could be provided to a regulatory body on a periodic basis. Is that correct?
The index of the records of
Yes.
calls? Yes, Your Honor.
And I believe you also testified that the recordings are downloaded and edited in-house when they need to be provided to a regulatory body. Is that what you're?
Yes.
Does someone in Smart Energy have the ability to edit and then upload a recording back to the server?
I would have to check the permissions to see whether there's a user with the ability to overwrite a file, but it's technically possible, yes.
And someone wouldn't be able to tell that that had happened?
The file timestamp would be, I think that the timestamp on the file might be out of alignment with the name of the file, which shows the date and time. So it might be apparent from the timing of the file being written to the server.
You had a discussion with Mr. Sheehan about re-rating people back to SOS after there's a complaint filed.
Yes.
Are they returned to their SOS provider as well?
Yes. Typically, that's part of their request.
So those people that you were re-rating to SOS, do you suspect they were with their SOS provider prior to becoming a Smart Energy customer?
We don't have data in the state of Maryland on whether someone was previously with a third-party provider or with a utility rate.
Does any notice go out to these customers when you re-rate them and send them back to their SOS provider?
Yes. It's not my department, but we write a letter, there's a check and close, and we send an EDI message to drop the customer as soon as they request that.
Okay, to your knowledge, has Smart Energy received communications from customers that have been re-rated and returned to SOS that they're confused because they don't know why they're going to their SOS provider because they had been with another supplier?
No.
Okay. Any redirect, Mr. Green, based on anybody's cross-examination?
Mr. Spencer, you got some questions about a Smart Energy employee's ability to download and edit files, audio files, and then potentially deleting them as well. First of all, let's talk about deleting. I think you said it's not your common practice to delete an audio file. Are you aware of any time where they would be deleted?
No.
Are you aware of anyone who ever has deleted an audio file?
No.
And in fact, they stay in the AWS cloud indefinitely?
Mr. Green, this is your witness. You're
Okay.
cross-examining him again.
Are you involved in the CAD complaint review process?
No.
So any decision relating to whether to re-rate, sending out a letter, however that's calculated, that's not in your department, or is it?
It's not.
Okay. And as far as access to the 5.9 portal or the AWS portal, I believe you talked about different users having different credentials or permissions. For someone to, at some point in that process, do they need to have your explicit approval in order to do something within those credentials or permissions?
So we have an IT department that is responsible for assigning permissions based on people's business needs. So I don't personally manage our 5.9 permissions anymore. I have an IT department that does that. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question or not.
Okay, I didn't know if at some point anyone had to come to you for permission to do something, anything with an audio file.
No.
Okay. Okay, I think that's all the questions I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay. I'm just going to offer the parties the opportunity, OPC and staff, if they'd like any recross based on my questions. Mr. Geiger?
Nothing for me, Your Honor.
Mr. Sheehan?
I have a few questions, Your Honor. You testified that you also maintain a separate server with these recordings on it?
This is the AWS server, yes.
So that's the only place that these recordings are stored?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood what you said. You said you're not involved in the CAD process. You're listed on the application as the regulatory contact. If a communication from CAD said that the company should be getting a signed contract, would someone have communicated that to you so you could contact the regulatory body, in this case, the Public Service Commission? Did you ever receive any messages like that?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question? What would be the nature of the messages you're asking if I receive?
Messages from CAD to the company saying that a signed contract is necessary.
I would have been aware of it. I was listed on the application as the regulatory person in 2016. That was a long time ago for us. And I was involved in pulling together our application paperwork. And at the time, I listed myself as the regulatory contact. So I would have received it either by email to my personal account, to my SmartEnergy account, or we also have a regulatory email account that goes to a number of people in the company to make sure that we catch those kind of things. So the short answer to your question is yes.
Are you currently the regulatory contact?
Anne-Marie Toss is our regulatory chief regulatory officer now.
Okay, she was hired in September of 2019, correct?
Yes.
Did SmartEnergy notify the commission that she is now the regulatory contact?
I don't know.
The messages from CAD.
Your Honor, if I may lodge an objection, we're way far from his reply testimony and from anything that he was asked today. I object is outside the scope.
Okay.
Your Honor, he testified that he was not involved in the CAD process.
With
Yeah, I
respect to
think
re-rating and sending letters.
Right. And Mr. Sheehan was kind of asking some clarifying questions around his duties. Do you have much more in this line, Mr. Sheehan?
I wanted to ask Mr. Spencer if he was made aware of a communication from CAD saying that the company needed to get a signed contract as a regulatory contact person would you try to speak with the regulatory body?
I'm going to allow that question.
Today,
Mr. Green.
can you give me a sense for, are we talking today in 2020 or?
Well, at any
2016?
time after Smart Energy started doing business in Maryland in 2017, I believe it was, up to today.
Yes, I would probably have been notified that if we got a formal communication from a regulatory body.
Okay. And to your knowledge, did Smart Energy ever reply to those messages or contact the regulatory body to clarify what was needed to memorialize the contract?
I mean, we reply to questions as a matter of course. I don't know whether in this particular case we did or not.
You don't know whether you contacted the commission or did you ever contact the commission general counsel to clarify that issue?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. That's all I have for this witness.
Your Honor, one question for Mr. Spencer, if I may. If someone from Smart Energy was going to reach out to a regulatory body, the general counsel of a commission, as Mr. Sheehan just said, would that be you or would that be someone else from the company?
It would probably be somebody else from the company. It just depends when we're talking. If it's today, it wouldn't be me. If it was in 2017.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so during the complaint period, it would probably be counsel for us or maybe Jackie Kern, because she has a lot of involvement in the CAD complaint process. I don't really get involved in the CAD complaint process.
Okay, so during the complaint period, were you involved with the CAD complaint process?
Mr. Green,
No.
I think we're done.
Okay, thank you.
You're excused, Mr. Spencer. Mr. Green, you can call your next witness. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Would be Jackie Kern, and Mr. Frisbee is going to take over.
Okay, Mr. Frisbee. Before I swear in the witness, I do need to remind you that this is your witness that you didn't want to have appear, but she did appear under subpoena. But now she's your witness, so your examination of her is direct examination. And the parties may object to the extent you attempt to lead this witness. I might not even wait for them to object, okay? Just a friendly reminder that this is now your direct examination of your witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. I guess Ms. Kern was previously sworn in. Does she need to be sworn in again?
I'll swear in again. Ms. Kern, right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm under penalties of perjury that testimony you're about to give in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Can you unmute yourself, Ms. Kern? Did you hear my oath?
I'm sorry. Yes. Yes, Your Honor, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kern. Yesterday, Mr. Wilson referred to your 30 years of direct marketing experience as well as your founding of a company, Main Street Direct. Could you talk about that experience?
Certainly. So, as you just mentioned, Dan and I started a business 30 years ago called Main Street Direct. What Main Street Direct is a direct response ad agency. And in the infancy of our business and throughout the remainder of our business, one of the things that we did is we had relationships with major advertisers like Citibank, American Express, ADT Home Securities, DirecTV, just to name a few. And our role was to help them in their customer acquisition efforts. We also, during that time period, used Main Street Direct as a platform to launch other businesses that were very consumer focused. One of them was a business called Reward Center, where we sold, I believe, 6 million consumer products to through various different media channels. So we had extensive experience in both customer acquisition, in product fulfillment, in customer service. Another business that we were involved in is a business called Publications Direct. That's a business that allowed us to sell to the consumers multiple different magazine titles on one advertisement. So the consumer could call in and order Time Magazine and People at the same phone call. So Main Street, again, was an agency that had many big brand clients, as well as we ran other companies using the Main Street as the platform to do so.
Thank you. Now, you mentioned customer acquisition. What did you mean when you say customer acquisition?
So direct response advertising is different than brand advertising. So brand advertising, if you will, is if you're looking at an ad on TV, there's no what's called call to action. So direct response advertising has a call to action. So if you see an 800 number or a website link on that you can click on and order a product, if you will. So under the umbrella of direct response advertising, it's about customer acquisition. You send out an ad to a consumer and they call the 800 number or go to your website, and the results are very measurable. What I mean by measurable is if we send out, 1 million direct mail pieces, we know exactly how many people respond from that mail piece and then ultimately sign up for whatever the program is that we're offering.
Now, in terms of customer acquisition, did you ever have to design and mail either postcards or other mailers for clients?
Absolutely. While we may not have been the agency that handled the design per se, we were involved with the creative agency who was responsible for the design component of that.
Did you ever get involved in the design of the mailer or postcard?
Yes, certainly.
Okay. Did that include things like color, size, font, things like that?
Yes.
Okay. I take it, did it also include drafting text?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So, largely with our agency clients, like the ones I mentioned, we were involved from the standpoint that, we didn't provide copy. No, typically the agency is responsible for the copy. The client and the company are responsible for the concept, if you will. Here's the concept of what we're looking for. And the agency would come back with suggestions.
Okay. Would it be correct to say that based on your experience, you're at least familiar with how direct response mailers commonly look and some of the common language that is used?
Absolutely.
Objection, Your Honor. This
Where?
line of questioning does not relate to my examination of Ms. Kern yesterday. I know this is direct examination, but it should be limited to what we discussed yesterday.
Two responses, Your Honor. Sorry.
It doesn't have to be limited to what was discussed yesterday. It does, however, have to be relevant. And I am not getting the relevance of really any of this, Mr.
Well, Your Honor, I was then going to ask her to look at SMB 6. I think it's pages 6 and 7 of 10, which were discussed yesterday.
Okay, again, I'm not limiting you to what was discussed yesterday. I'm saying it has to be relevant.
No, I understand,
Are you finished
Your Honor,
with the background? Are you finished with our background?
Yeah.
So that, okay,
Yes.
you're going to get to an exhibit now. Okay,
Precisely.
please proceed.
Okay. Ms. Kern, do you have SMB 6 in front of you? It was in volume 1.
Okay. SMB6, I'm getting there. If you can hang on a minute, please. SMB6. Yes, Mr. Frisbee, I do.
Okay. Now, let's look at page 6 of 10. Do you have that in front of you?
Let me get to page 6. I do.
As he's getting there, I'm just going to also, in case this wasn't clear, both staff and OPC will have the opportunity to cross-examine this witness based on Mr. Frisbee's direct examination this morning. Again, if that
Thank
wasn't
you, Your Honor. Mr. Frisbee, what are we looking for? What document and what page?
SMB 6, page 6 of 10.
Okay, thank you very much.
It's the postcard. Do you have the postcard in front of you, Ms. Kerr?
Yes, I do.
Now, I think Mr. Sheehan talked about I guess it's time-sensitive act now. Do you remember that discussion?
I do.
Okay. Is a phrase like time-sensitive act
Mr.
now?
Frisbee, Mr. Frisbee, I have to remind you that this is direct examination.
Okay.
So you
Yes.
need to ask her open-ended questions about.
Okay. Is the phrase time-sensitive act now commonly used in the direct response industry on postcards?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Why is that?
It's used because, direct response is very fluid and companies change their offers all the time. If you don't set a deadline or an expiration date, you don't have the ability to change your offer.
Okay, thank you. Is the use of time-sensitive act now intended to mislead anyone?
Objection. Wait, stop.
Sorry.
Mr. Frisbee, this is direct examination.
Fine. Okay, I withdraw the question, Your Honor.
If you wanted to cross-examine her, we could have proceeded that way yesterday. You wanted to have this as your witness and ask her direct examination questions.
Okay.
I don't know why the other parties aren't objecting.
Fine.
Do you want to proceed with a direct examination?
Yes. I'll move on, Your Honor.
May I go back to something about the time sensitive? Would that be
No, you need to wait for a question.
Okay, I apologize, Your Honor.
Yeah, no worries. Let's go to the CAD complaints.
Okay.
And I think there was testimony, and I'm not asking a direct question. You mentioned, I think, yes, you've mentioned that at some point in responding to the CAD complaints, you only listened to and sent the CAD, you only listened to the confirmation portions and sent the confirmations portions to CAD. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. This is going to be a personal question, and but I think it's important for the record, and also counsel have all been apprised of the situation. Did you have any personal reasons for that might have influenced you to only look at the confirmation portion of the recording, or listen to? Sorry.
It was a very difficult time period for me. My husband suffered 2 strokes, which my sons witnessed. The recovery and trauma associated that had long-lasting effects on myself and my family. At that time, we had a process in place for reviewing a large percentage of the calls. At that time, I was confident that these complaints, that the recordings, I listened to so many sales recordings over the years. We had a solid team that was listening to 25% of the calls. Many of those calls failed and the agents would be retrained. I was wearing many hats at the time, and I thought I would get what I needed from the sales confirmation. And while I regret this, it was how I handled it. There was no malintent. It was never in a practice to deceive anybody or to condone bad behavior.
Was there a point during the course of this proceeding that you came to realize that you really hadn't focused on the sales portion of the recording?
When I was asked to testify at the pre-trial hearing, which I think was October 15th, 16th, I spent the better part of that weekend looking at my CAD responses and listening to the recordings. About 6 calls in, I realized that there were some of the recordings that the sales calls that I would have re-rated. There was no possible way I would not have re-rated these customers. And I realized at that time that I was relying on the sales confirmation, which is where the material terms and conditions are located. And I regret that.
Mm-hmm. Did this refreshed recollection come about before or after your deposition?
It came about 2 weekends ago.
Was that before or after your deposition?
After, sorry, apologize.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Mackerlane, I believe you wanted to cross-examine this witness yesterday. Do you have questions at this time?
Yes. Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Kern. I'm very sorry to hear about that difficult time with your husband and family.
Thank you, Ms. Mackerlane.
Yesterday and just a moment ago, you testified that the confirmation portion of the call provides all material terms and conditions to the agreement, correct?
Yes.
Would you please refer to Staff Exhibit KDM Exhibit 3? It's the sales script. It's page 24 through 29.
I'm sorry. If my counsel could just assist, big binder or small binder.
It's in volume 2.
Okay.
Smaller
Thanks.
binder.
Okay. Okay, I apologize, Ms. Macklin. Can you tell me where it is now that I have the right binder in front of me?
Yes. So would you pull up Staff Exhibit KDM Exhibit 3?
KDM. Yeah.
It should be the sales script.
Okay. Am I allowed to use a sales script that I have printed? So I don't have to struggle to look.
Is this the sales script that the company used in sales up until about 2019?
Yes.
I would like to use the sales script that is subject of these complaints.
Okay. That's what I have in front of me, if that's okay.
Okay. Could you please read question 1 of the confirmation questions? It would be on the second page in the middle.
Mm-hmm. Can you please state your full name for me?
So a little further down, it would start at add customer first name, the confirmation portion of the sales script.
Okay, sorry. Sorry, is anyone else getting an echo? Hello, testing. Sorry, it's better now. Ms. Macklin, can you hear me clearly?
Yes.
Okay. Just to be clear, we do consider, can you please state your full name as the first question?
Okay.
I believe you're referring to the part which starts with the customer's name. Do you understand? Is that what you're referring to?
No. I'm just starting at, is it okay if I read the question, Your Honor? On the sales script?
If you want to ask her a question about it, maybe,
Okay.
are you directing her to it?
Yes.
If counsel would ask, is it page 24 or 25? I mean,
It's
on what-
page 26.
26, okay. Thank you.
If you want to read what you're trying to direct her to help her find it.
It starts at customer first name. Do you understand that by enrolling in Smart Energy's price protection plan?
Okay. Okay. At customer first name, do you understand that by enrolling in Smart Energy's price protection plan, you'll receive a fixed rate of X cents per kilowatt hour for 6 months, and then a competitive market-based rate that may change from month to month. And as mentioned, utility, BGE, will continue to deliver your electricity, send your bill, and respond to emergencies? Must answer yes.
Thank you. And isn't it true that Smart Energy's renewable product is not mentioned in that question?
That's true.
So Smart Energy's renewable product is not a relevant term.
A relevant term. That the purpose of that question is to confirm the price that the consumer will be paying and to notify them that the price may change, that the may change from month to month after that 6-month period.
Okay, thank you. You've testified that Smart Energy's business practices strive to make continued improvements, and the scripts have evolved as you go, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. But in fact, Smart Energy only has 2 different sales scripts developed from the inception of the company in Maryland until today, correct?
Not until today, but during the complaint period. Today, I can't speak for anything. There's a different script because we're offering a different product now.
Okay, so yes, during the complaint period, Smart Energy only, through its evolution and constant improvements, has only developed 2 scripts, correct?
During the complaint time period.
Okay. And the company updated the script in April of 2018, correct?
No, it was April I believe it was it 2018 or it was 2019?
Right. It's 2019.
I'm sorry, did you say 18 or 19?
I believe I said 19, but
I thought I heard 18, sorry. So I just wanted to clarify that was 2019.
Okay. And the reason for this update was because customer confusion was resulting about the terms of when a customer could obtain 1 month free of electricity, correct?
So we are constantly, as we discussed and as you mentioned, welcoming feedback from various sources. Every day, the sales team has a huddle. They go over issues like what's happening, where's the confusion, how can we do something better? And we make changes based on feedback from regulatory bodies, from our care team, and from our sales team. So where this specific change came from, I don't know, but it's definitely something we're striving for, is like constantly improving what needs to be improved.
So customers were not confused about the way to obtain 1 month free of electricity.
So can we pull up the welcome kit? Would that be appropriate, Your Honor? It's an exhibit.
No, actually, you didn't answer her last question, so I'd like you to answer this one.
Okay. I'm sorry, can you ask the question again, Ms. McLaurin?
Yes. So one of the reasons this Smart Energy updated their script in 2019 was because customers were experiencing confusion on how to obtain the 1 month free electricity, correct?
So it was in the original script as well. It wasn't mandatory for the consumer to read it. If I may I go back to the original script? It was in the original script.
customers of Smart Energy experienced confusion? Yes or no? From that sales script about the 1 month free offer?
I can't say that they experienced confusion. I could say the way we reworded it and made it required to read improved our process.
Okay. So the update to the April 2019 script, one of the updates is a better explanation and presentation of how a customer needs to be enrolled for 7 months, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. On either of the Smart Energy sales scripts, isn't it true the script does not include a direct question asking the customer whether they want to change or switch to an electric supplier?
I mean, the customer receives a postcard from us. The postcard comes from Smart Energy. On the postcard, it states that Smart Energy is a licensed electricity supplier and is not.
The question I asked.
But I think it's important.
Is there a question on the script asking a customer if they want to change or switch to an electric supplier?
We say on the script, if I may pull up the script again. Hang on, I have to go back to the, which script are you referring to?
Either script, both scripts are in
I
evidence.
made objection. I let this go on, but I never covered scripts in my direct. This is way beyond the scope of my direct.
I'm going to allow it, Mr. Frisbee. Ms. Mackerlane, do you want to repeat your question?
Sure. It's the question asking a customer whether they want to change or switch to an electric supplier is not a part of either of Smart Energy's sales scripts.
We don't use the word, I'm sorry, what? Did you add something after?
Just correct. That question is not in the sales scripts.
We don't say the word switch, but we say by using Smart Energy in several places in the script.
That answer is not responsive to the question, Ms. Kern. Do you need her to repeat the question again?
Please, I apologize.
Okay. On either of the sales scripts, is there a question asking the customer whether they want to change or switch to an electric supplier?
The word change or switch is not in the script.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna move on. Well, actually, I just have just one more follow-up question to that. I'd like to discuss the postcards that Mr. Frisbee just brought up, SMB 6, Exhibit SMB 6.
Hang on a second, please. Let me go back to that book. Oh, gosh. I'm ready.
Okay.
I didn't know if you wanted that exact postcard, or can you give me the page number, please?
Yes, so we're starting on page 6 of 10, and of 101, I'm sorry. And it was the postcard that we were looking at earlier.
Okay.
And you testified that the expiration date is necessary because you need to have that so that the company can change its offers, correct?
That's correct.
And Smart Energy, up until recently, did not change its offer of offering 1 month of free electricity, correct?
Up until recently,
yesterday you testified that you offer 100 Visa rewards card. So prior to that, Smart Energy had not changed its offers of 1 month of free electricity, correct?
We are constantly testing new offers, and we need to reserve the right to change offers, which is why we have an expiration date on the postcard. You'd be surprised by this, and I think I used the example yesterday. In 2016 and early 17, we were exclusively offering 1 month win a free year of electricity. It was a sweepstakes offer, and we to this day get calls on the sweepstakes offer, and we have to tell the consumer that we're no longer offering that promotion.
Ms.
Okay.
Mackerlane, I
Yes.
don't believe her response was responsive. Do you want to ask the question again?
Sure.
Ms. Kern,
Yes, Your Honor.
the free month of electricity, which you offered, when did you stop offering that?
I'm thinking, I'm talking out loud. I promise I'll answer. I was thinking we started testing the Visa gift card in roughly Q4 of 2019, and we started to wean the free month offer. I don't have the document in front of me, but I think it was provided on the exact date we stopped offering this. But it's, as we test something that's successful, we slow down one offer and we increase the other. I don't know the exact time periods, but again, I believe it was provided.
I think actually yesterday you testified it was late Q3 or Q4 of 2019. Does that sound correct?
I know that's when we introduced the Visa gift card and started to slow down the mail volume on the free month. I don't know when the free month was completely changed over to the Visa gift card.
Okay. Ms. Mackerlane, I don't know if that helped you or not.
I think I'll just move on at this point. Isn't it true that these postcards, all these postcards, they're exhibit SMB6, market to price and cost savings rather than renewable energy?
I don't believe we mentioned cost savings on any postcard in exhibit SMB6.
So you wouldn't consider 1 month free a cost savings?
I consider that a promotion. I consider that a premium.
Okay.
It's really,
I understand.
Okay.
Sorry. Here. And then earlier this morning, you were testifying that you realized about 2 weeks ago that you had not listened to all the sales calls, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So in your role as regulatory liaison, you did not listen to all the sales calls, correct?
We're specifically referring to the complaint calls.
Yes.
That I didn't listen to the call in its entirety. That's correct.
Okay. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Mr. Sheehan?
Hello again, Ms. Kern. I also wanted to express my sympathy for the situation that you and your family have gone through, and say I'm sorry to hear that. I wanted to ask you about, Mr. Frisbee was talking about your prior experience. I wanted to ask you about, you have a BSBA in Business Administration from Ohio State University, correct?
Yes.
Okay. If we could now turn to your deposition, which is Exhibit SMB 9 to Susan Baldwin's direct testimony.
Okay, hang on a second. I have that in front of me.
Okay, and if you could turn to page 3, the page numbering on here is strange because there's a page number and then each quadrant on that page has a page number.
Yes,
So, pardon?
yes, I know it is. It's definitely confusing. Thanks for pointing that out so I don't
Okay.
look foolish.
Page 3, and on page 3, there's a page 7. It's the lower left-hand corner, lower
Page,
left-hand quadrant of the page.
I believe I'm there.
Okay. Do you recall that that before we got into the questions at your deposition, I asked you if there was anything going on in your life currently that would affect your ability to comprehend and answer my questions completely, truthfully, and accurately? And you responded no, correct?
Uh, yes, that was January 7th, 2020. That's correct.
Okay. So the unfortunate events, were they happening at that time or prior to that time?
Prior to that time.
Okay. Could you turn to page 9?
A second. Okay.
And again, the same lower left-hand corner, that quadrant, page 31.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recall telling us that when you received a complaint from CAD, you requested information from, I think his name was Juan?
Actually, his name is John.
John, okay.
Yes.
And you said that would be the call recording, the start, the end, start date, the end date. Isn't that correct?
If you continue reading, there's a little bit more, but yes, that was a subset of what I said.
Oh, and the date that the welcome kit, the drop date, oh, and the welcome kit you looked at as well. Now moving to the upper right-hand quadrant, it's page 32 on the deposition.
Okay.
I asked you, so your response to the Maryland Consumer Affairs Division would be informed by your having listened to the call. In other words, you would listen to the call and respond to the Consumer Affairs Division. And you answered correct, correct?
Correct.
And at that time, your emotional situation that you were going through, had it ended when you answered by that time?
Yes, it has, Mr. Sheehan, at that time.
By that time, okay. I have nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you, Ms. Kern.
Any redirect, Mr. Frisbee?
Please.
Mr. Frisbee? I'm sorry, you were muted.
He's
Did you?
muted. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry, Your Honor. No redirect.
Okay. Smart Energy can call its next witness.
Your Honor, Ms. Music is going to take the next witness. Go ahead.
Yes, Your Honor. We would like to call Dehan Besnaika.
Mr. Beznaikia, can you please raise your right hand? Are you?
Yes.
Thank you. Are you? You're unmuted. Okay. Do you swear or affirm under penalties of perjury that testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
Your witness, Ms. Music.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Beznaikia, can you state your name and your business address for the record, please?
Sure. Dehan Basnaika, 400 Madison Avenue, Suite 9, New York, New York.
Thank you. And did you cause to be filed reply testimony consisting of 12 narrative pages and 3 exhibits on March 13th, 2020?
Yes, I did.
And was this prepared by you or under your supervision?
Yes.
And if the questions asked in that testimony, referring to the reply testimony, were asked of you today under oath, would your answers be the same?
Yes. I have some minor changes that I'd like to put into the record.
Yes. Do you, Your Honor, is now the appropriate time for to describe those changes? They were circulated to counsel previously. I think it's 2 numbers.
Yeah, I was going to ask you which exhibit you're wanting to have marked. Is it the one that was originally filed, or is it the one that Mr. Green circulated at 11:36 p.m. last evening?
Yes, Your Honor. So yes, that the one I was going to ask would be the one that was circulated yesterday evening. Yes.
Okay, and that's now public?
5.
Is there
Yes.
no longer a confidential version of Mr. Biznaki's testimony?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Okay.
Your Honor, I'm confused. Is any of this confidential?
That's what we're uncovering, and I believe that this is not confidential, no.
Okay, I will not mark it as confidential. Thank you.
Yes, Your Honor. It is not confidential.
Okay, so Mr. Biznaki's reply testimony, now public, that was circulated late last evening will be marked as Smart Energy Exhibit 5.
Yes, Your Honor. And with Your Honor's permission, I would move to have this entered into evidence.
Any objections? Seeing none, Smart Energy Exhibit 5 will be moved into evidence.
Thank you, Your Honor. And Mr. Biznaika, did you cause to be filed sir rebuttal testimony consisting of 5 narrative pages and no exhibits on or about August 12, 2020?
Yes.
Was this prepared by you or under your supervision?
Yes.
And if the questions asked in this testimony were asked of you today under oath, would your answers be the same?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd like to mark for identification Mr. Biznaika's sir rebuttal testimony as Smart Energy 6.
So marked.
And with Your Honor's permission, I would move to have this exhibit entered into evidence, please.
Any objections? Hearing none, Smart Energy Exhibit 6 will be moved into evidence.
Okay, and Your Honor, would it be possible to have Mr. Biznaika explain just those 2 changes and the reason for those 2 updates at this time?
Proceed.
Mr. Biznaika, can you please explain the 2 numerical changes on pages? Well, I'll let you identify the pages yourself. Will you please explain that?
Sure. On my reply testimony, page number 2, line 21, where it reads, on average, the QA team monitors 185 calls per day. That number is actually 300 calls per day. Then on page 3, line number 4, in answer to the question, who is in charge of this process? The QA team has a manager, a team lead, and the number 7 has been updated to 11 quality assurance analysts.
And just to clarify, I believe the number was correct of the staff in your sir rebuttal, which is why that was not corrected. He just wanted to ensure, I believe, catch me if I'm not saying this correctly, but I believe he just wanted to make sure his reply was consistent with his sir rebuttal. Is that correct?
Okay. Yes.
Okay. I believe the witness is tendered for cross-examination.
I don't know which attorney for staff is handling this witness.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Catherine McErlane on behalf of staff. Good afternoon, Mr. Bisnaika.
Good afternoon.
So you were hired as an employee of Smart Energy in October of 2019, correct?
September 2019.
September. Okay. I found different dates throughout the testimony, so I wanted to clarify that. Thank you. And Jackie Kern performed many of the functions that you're currently performing prior to your joining the company, correct?
I wouldn't say that. Mr. Spencer also performed some of those functions.
Okay. So isn't it correct that part of your job duties would include replacing or expanding ineffective quality assurance processes?
Could you repeat that question? I'm not sure I understood that.
Isn't it correct that part of your job duties would include replacing ineffective quality assurance processes?
I wouldn't characterize it as ineffective. One of my primary job directives was to enhance and improve or continue to improve the quality assurance function to support the ongoing growth of our company.
And that quality assurance function would be reviewing and monitoring sales calls, correct?
Correct.
Part of your testimony, you testify that since April 2019, Smart Energy has tracked every sales agent and any and all fails related to their sales efforts, correct?
Yes. Yes.
But even
Yes, that's correct.
after, okay, so then even after that time period of tracking every sales agent and all fails, customers were still being enrolled without understanding the terms and agreements, correct?
I don't understand that question. Can you repeat that again?
Yes. So even after these new, even after tracking every sales agent and any and all fails related to sales efforts, customers were still enrolled in failed sales calls, correct?
It's possible that a customer would be enrolled. Yes.
And in your testimony, fail calls are reviewed by the Q&A team lead and manager for accuracy, correct?
The quality assurance team monitors the calls based on a set of established guidelines and rates the calls accordingly.
In your testimony, you testified it for accuracy.
Can you direct me to where?
Yes, I believe it's page 4. Sorry, I'm pulling it up. Oh my. Your reply testimony on my screen. Sorry, just give me one moment. was, I'm sorry, I have the wrong page number written down, so I'll just move on to the next question. Smart Energy has not offered into evidence concerning these 34 CAD complaints any evidence that a sales agent would reach out to a customer to clarify an issue in question when a call fails, correct?
Regarding these 34 complaints,
Yes.
I'm not aware that they have, or we have, or not.
Okay. And in the second quarter of 2019, Smart Energy initiated a project to enhance the quality assurance function to encompass 20 to 30% of all inbound sales and 10 to 15% of inbound calls, correct?
Yes.
So this was a change in the quality assurance function of reviewing the number of calls?
It was an increase to the number of calls that were being reviewed.
So at the end of Q2 or the second quarter of 2019, Smart Energy decided to change the number of calls that were reviewed, correct?
That decision was made from the time that that I started, and it was a process that was happening prior to my start. We established higher targets as we got into 2019. Currently, we're closer to the 30% of calls and 15% of all calls.
So there are fewer calls being monitored before you were hired, correct?
There were less calls being monitored earlier on, yes.
And part of the Q&A monitoring guidelines includes script adherence and correct?
Correct.
And a sales agent will fail the QA monitoring guidelines even for the slightest deviation, correct?
So to clarify, there are verbatim sections of the script, and there are verbatim sections in the confirmation portion of the script as well. And there is a automatic fail for any deviation from those verbatim sections.
But it's clear from the testimony in this case that many sales agents deviate from reading the sales script verbatim, correct?
So again, I want to clarify that there are specific sections of the script that are verbatim, and those verbatim sections are monitored by quality assurance, and it's an automatic fail if there's any deviation, even the slightest, of those verbatim sections.
Quality assurance does monitor other portions of the sales calls, correct?
Correct. Quality assurance monitors the entire sales call.
And sales agents can make misleading statements in other portions of the sales call and a customer will still be enrolled, correct?
Could you define what you mean by misleading?
Make an affiliation to the utility, not explicitly explain how to obtain 1 month free when a customer asks, not explain like those type of misrepresentations.
There are certain fails that would allow the enrollment to go forward. There are other fails on the calls that would stop or require a call back to the customer or a cancellation of the enrollment.
Okay, so maybe to be more specific, sales representatives regularly omitted disclosures about the fixed rate during the pre-confirmation segment of the calls, correct?
What time frame are you referring to?
All of these CAD complaints, 2017 up until about when the complaint was filed.
So the CAD complaints, my understanding is those calls were prior to 2019 and prior to September 2018. Is that correct?
Yes.
So could you repeat your question again with that time frame?
So sales representatives regularly omitted disclosures of the fixed rate during the pre-confirmation segment of those calls. Correct?
I disagree with the word regularly.
Okay.
I understand you're referring only to the 34 complaints.
Yes.
Okay, of which I believe not all of them are related to sales calls.
Right. But in these 34 complaints, there are sales calls, and disclosures on the fixed rate is not included in many of the sales calls, correct?
I would say in some of them that could be true.
And renewable energy was not mentioned in many of the sales calls subject to this complaint, correct?
Again, that's possibly true, yes.
Isn't it the job of the quality assurance monitoring program to identify these omissions?
Which omissions are you talking about?
I'm referring to the omissions we were just talking about. For example, the omissions such as not mentioning the fixed rate, or they never mentioned the renewable product description in their sales calls.
So that is a requirement to read this section that has the rate. That's a verbatim section of the script, and that is monitored by quality assurance. In addition, the script also identifies SMARTENERGY as a supplier of renewable energy. That is also a verbatim section, and that is also monitored by quality assurance.
Okay. And again, you were hired after many of these, you were hired after the, you were not part of the quality assurance program that is subject to many of these complaints, correct?
I joined in September 2019. Sorry, 2018.
Right.
Time flies.
It does. So once you joined the company, it was then your responsibility to make improvements to the quality assurance program, correct?
Yes, that was one of my responsibilities, is to grow that team.
And part of the quality assurance monitoring program is to terminate agents if they slammed a customer, correct?
Could you repeat that just to make sure I understood that fully?
Sure. So if in your review of a sales agent's call, if they signed up a customer without their consent by slamming them, you would terminate the agent, correct?
So quality assurance does not terminate the agents. Quality assurance would inform the necessary parties regarding the occurrence of a slam and recommend that the agent be terminated, which the agent was or would be. Quality assurance would also that the customer contacted and if no contact is available to explain the offer to the enrollment to the customer, the enrollment will be canceled.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions.
OPC?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, good afternoon, Mr. Besnaika. My name is Philip Sheehan. I work for OPC. And I believe we met here in Baltimore maybe last May, last June.
I can't see where you are, Mr. Sheehan.
Mr.
See.
Sheehan, can you turn on your video, please?
Okay. It kept turning off. I believe we met in May or June of last year here in Baltimore, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. It's good to see you again. I wanted to, you just testified that you started work for Smart Energy in September of 2018, correct?
Yes.
So anything that occurred prior to September of 2018, you had no knowledge of what happened, correct?
I don't know
You have
what
no
you
personal
mean.
you have no personal knowledge.
I have no personal experience, I would say.
Okay. Thank you. Looking at your testimony, you say that you are the Chief Customer Officer for Smart Energy, correct?
I am the Chief Customer Officer of Smart Energy, yes.
And Ms. Kern is the Senior Vice President for Customer Care. Can you describe the difference between those two roles?
Yes. Ms. Curran managed or handled the regulatory or PUC complaint process. My role was to oversee the quality assurance department, the workforce management department, the customer care phone team, and work on with our project management team.
Okay, thank you very much. At the top of page 2 of your testimony, lines 3, 4, and 5, you discuss the monitoring process as something that has evolved over the last few years, especially in Q2, second quarter of 2019, correct?
Yes.
The lawsuit against Smart Energy, or the show cause, was filed in the second quarter of 2019, correct?
I'm not aware of that date. I apologize.
May 15th, 2019 falls in the second quarter of 2019, correct?
May 15th, 2019? Yes, it does.
Okay. Was the filing of this show cause order or any action in another state, including Illinois and Ohio, did that precipitate the evolution that seems to have gained momentum in the second quarter of 2019?
Excuse me. I wouldn't characterize it as such. I had been working to make ongoing changes to quality assurance since really my first week there, and some of the I would say that there were ongoing changes to some of the mandatory guidelines that occurred during that time period, but this was not the sole reason or really the reason for many of the changes that I was putting into place.
Can you tell us what the reason was?
The reason for, could you repeat that? The reason for?
The reason for the activities and changes that were made in Smart Energy, especially in regard to quality assurance in this, especially in the second quarter of 2019.
Sure. So So the to build out a function as the company is growing, that's not a process that occurs in one day, right? We had to maintain the ongoing activity. We added we were building a team out. We added more employees. We made technology changes. We made process changes. Many of these things, had to be tested while we were in production. So a lot of those changes occurred in that time frame, and to really explain this, this is an ongoing effort. To this very day, we're looking at what are the next steps that we can take. We've built out a new platform that we've integrated to our process, where using speech analytics. We're going to continue to evolve our process as the company grows to support the quality of our interactions.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm wondering, so the processes that you describe in your testimony were implemented after any of these complaints that we're looking at, or with they post date the 34 complaints to CAD.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Are the measures that you talk about in your testimony, when were they implemented? Before or after the filing of the show cause order in May of 2019?
There were many measures that were already implemented or being implemented or being changed. I can say personally that none of the show cause order complaints informed me or my decisions on how to manage the quality assurance. There were changes to the script that were happening. These have to be updated into the monitoring process. So there was a lot of activity in Q2 2019. We also instituted a daily sales meeting with our sales team, and that's when that launched. So there were many things that occurred at that period. But I would say that we were building these out regardless of complaints.
Thank you. Yesterday, Mr. Kern testified that every one of the 34 complaints missed the QA process, weren't captured in that review process. Is that correct?
Yes, they were not in the QA records.
Have you had a chance since the filing of the show cause order to run these 34 calls through your QA process that you have currently?
We have run I'm not sure if it's 34 or 30 calls, but calls were run through the QA process, yes.
And do you know the results of that?
I believe the almost all of them failed QA.
Okay, thank you. What steps have you taken to ensure that that does not happen in the future? That calls that are the subject of complaints to a regulatory body, including CAD, that they are reviewed by your team in the QA division?
So there are two tracks that will ensure that or get us very close to eliminating this possibility. So the first is to continuously increase the number of calls that we monitor, and to leverage technology to assist us in doing so. and we're well on the path of doing that. Where if this hearing had been a month later, our daily average would be almost 400 calls a day. So we're continuing to do that. With speech analytics, we hope to get to 100% of all our calls at least monitored by a technology solution. The second part of that is in the PSC complaint process, we now have shifted that process in a way where the quality assurance, the PSC complaint call will be run through the regulatory department, and they would leverage the quality assurance department to review those calls. So that should that call have not been monitored initially, it'll be monitored post the complaint by quality assurance.
Okay. Thank you. I just emailed to Your Honor and other counsel of record an exhibit that I've pre-marked as two exhibits that I've pre-marked as OPC Exhibit 9 and OPC Exhibit 9C. And I'm hoping that Smart Energy's counsel can forward that to you, Mr. Bisnaga.
Yes, is with Your Honor's permission, and just to make sure it's all right, I'm just going to forward it with no commentary.
Yes, please forward the exhibit to your client.
Mr. Bisnaga, I'm going to send you an email right now.
Okay.
With 2 exhibits attached. Can you just confirm when you receive it, Mr. Bisnaga?
I have not received it yet. I did just now. There are 2.
It should be 2 PDFs. Your Honor, may I have a moment to take a look at it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Bisnaga, you should, or you could just look at 9C, which is the confidential version of that exhibit. If you could let us know when you're finished reviewing it.
I've looked at it, yes.
My question is, you refer in your testimony to the quality assurance analysts and team leads. Can you tell us what team leads are, who they are?
And in doing so, please just use initials, Mr. Bisnaga.
Sure. Yes. Do you want me to describe what a team lead's role is, or do you want me to name?
Oh, I'm
Okay.
sorry, Mr. Sheen. I thought you were asking him to refer to the exhibit and tell us which of these individuals. I'm sorry, that wasn't your question. If you get to the point where we're discussing the names of the individuals, please use initials.
Got it. So is your question, what are team leads, or what do they do?
Yeah, if you could describe the role of team lead.
Sure. So a team lead in the quality assurance department has a group of quality assurance analysts that report to them. The team lead also does the monitoring, but a portion of their time is used to audit our quality assurance analysts, as well as ensure that their daily monitoring tasks are being done and that their what we call our quality queues, or the queue of recordings that they monitor, is set up and working correctly.
Thank you. Are there also team leads in the sales department or the telesales agent department?
The sales department does have team leads, correct?
Okay. So the exhibit that I just circulated is in response to OPC data request 5.2, and OPC asked the company to inform us of all of the disciplinary actions taken against the sales agents that were involved with the 34 calls that were complained about to CAD. Just to explain why these people are listed here. Can you tell me how many of these people are employed now in the quality assurance department in any capacity? You could give us the initials, or that would be helpful.
Your Honor, I would just object. I think that's a confusing question. These are sales agents, not quality assurance agents, and he's asking for the number of people, but then said to refer to initials. So I just would ask that he be instructed to reframe his question in a way that's less confusing.
Okay, I understood the question. Mr. Basnaka, did you understand the question?
I understood the question. The question is anyone here in the? I don't see anyone here in the quality assurance department. Is that your question?
That's one of my questions, yes. So if the company had provided information about employees and organization that included one of these names within quality assurance, that would be incorrect?
Hold on, let me double check this list. I see actually one person. I need to. Who's?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You need to use initials. I'm sorry, Mr. Basnaka.
Sorry.
You need to use initials, please.
I got it.
Thank you, court reporter.
I'm not sure if this is the same person. Many people have the same names. So that's the only one that is potentially someone with a similar name on the quality assurance team.
So the sales agent with the initials EA?
Is potentially the same person. I'm not sure. Most likely not, given the start date, but I can't be 100% sure.
Okay. And can you tell me how many employees listed here work as team leads in the sales department?
I cannot. I'm not.
Does quality assurance interact with the sales department?
We monitor all of their calls, or we monitor their calls, yes.
And when you find a deficiency, you speak to the sales department, correct?
We interact with the sales management, and our team leads will also interact with the sales team leads. Correct.
Okay, so you don't necessarily know the names of the sales team leads?
I would need to refer to the current sales roster to determine that. Yes.
Okay. thank you. Oh, on page 4 of your testimony, line 12,
Yes.
you say that
So-
SmartEnergy, pardon?
Sorry, page 4, line 12?
Correct.
Okay.
You say that SmartEnergy has a zero tolerance for slamming. What is your understanding of slamming?
It's a unauthorized enrollment. It's very black and white. The customer has said no. I don't want this.
So it's an enrollment after a customer has said no.
The customer has indicated that they do not wish to be enrolled.
Okay, thank you. Does the quality assurance team ever recommend that SmartEnergy contact a consumer? That was this part of the call that you had listened to.
Yes, the quality assurance department does recommend that a customer be contacted in the context of a unauthorized enrollment or SLAM.
And what is the purpose of that communication, subsequent communication with the consumer or enrollee?
To allow to contact the customer and correctly enroll the customer. That's the reasoning behind that.
Is it then the process starts anew, the customer is returned to SOS?
So the attempt is to contact the customer that day, and to to go over the sales process or the sales presentation to make sure that they clearly understand the enrollment. And in the event that we are unable to contact the customer, which is quite common, we would cancel that enrollment.
Are recordings of those telephone conversations with the customer, are they maintained by the company?
So all our recordings are maintained on 5.9. Yes.
Okay. And when there's a regulatory complaint, would those calls be included with the recording sent to CAD?
On a regulatory complaint, would which calls are you referring to?
Well, I guess we have now 3 calls. We have the sales and sales and confirmation, which is one continuous call, but is edited by the company before it's sent to CAD. And then we have a subsequent call based on the quality assurance team's review of the initial call.
So
Just a
So-
moment. I'm just going to
okay.
object to that question to the extent that it somewhat contained editorial commentary or testimony by Mr. Sheehan.
I don't think it did. I think he was just rewording Mr. Wozniak's testimony to see if he had understood it correctly. That's how I interpreted Mr. Sheehan's question. But if Mr. Sheehan wants to reword it, he can.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I don't feel the need to reword it unless Mr. Besnaika didn't understand.
Could you just repeat it?
Just a moment. Your Honor, the only
Okay.
part, I didn't find the rest of the question objectionable. I just think that he implied that Mr. Besnaika testified that the company edited the call. That was my only, I didn't recall Mr. Busnaik saying that. So that's the only part I wanted to ensure was not.
Okay, so that's evidence in the record, but just not from this witness. Mr.
Thank
Sheehan,
you.
just based on
Right.
that, can you
I
reword your
was
question?
not, yeah, I wasn't saying that Mr. Besnaika himself edited these recordings. Are those subsequent calls? You have the agent call the customer to confirm things. Are those recordings provided to CAD
So I
when there's
would
a
say
complaint?
So when there's a complaint, so the calls to the call attempts in the event of a unauthorized enrollment or SLAM, those are that occurrence is very rare. My understanding of what is provided to CAD are the enrollment call, the customer care call if it's related to a customer care complaint, and if there existed a follow-up call to an unauthorized enrollment, and the complaint was regarding an unauthorized enrollment, then I would think that those call recordings would also be provided.
Okay. Thank you. If a sales agent had said in a sales call in response to consumer confusion, we'll send you all the details, and if you're not happy, you can cancel with no fee. Would that kind of statement cause a call to fail the QA process now?
Could you repeat that again?
If a sales agent, in response to confusion by the consumer, were to say, we'll send you all the details in a welcome kit in a few days, and if you're not happy, you can cancel. Would that fail or pass the new QA regimen?
So the context of confusion in your statement is unclear, but I can say affirmatively that one of the QA fail reasons is to use the welcome kit as some type of indication of a read the documents before you try. It is not allowed to use the welcome kit as that type of tool. The welcome kit is, that would be a fail if that was used in such a way.
Thank you.
We-
If they say, thank you. Did
You're
you have
welcome.
something else to add, or?
No.
Okay. If a sales agent failed to respond to any question that the consumer had, would that pass or fail your current QA regimen?
That would fail. A requirement in QA is a question has to be answered. Any question.
Okay. Your Honor, I would like to move OPC exhibits 9 and 9C into evidence.
And Your Honor, I would object to that because they were not listed on OPC's exhibit list and were only sent around this morning. And they've had these documents since November, I believe 6th or 19th, I'm not clear on the date, 2019.
You've also had these documents, correct?
I have, but they were required to provide them in response to the request for exhibits on August 26th.
With the exception
Honor,
that let me go ahead, please, Mr. Sheehan. With the exception that there was an understanding that there might be documents that came up in cross-examination, which this is. So yes, every party was supposed to have an exhibit list and pre-circulate exhibits that they plan to use in their case in chief, but there was never an expectation that a document might not come up on cross-examination, which this has. So the objection is overruled, and I don't see an objection from staff. So OPC exhibits 9 and 9C will be entered into the record.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions for Mr. Visnaika. Thank you, Mr. Visnaika.
Okay, at this point, we're going to take a break for lunch. But Mr. Biznaka, you are not excused and you are not to speak to counsel about your testimony because you're still under oath and you're still subject to questions. We will return at 1:15.
Okay, thank you.